So, Dan, I was talking with you and your colleague Dino earlier. I saw a talk at the Black Hat conference last year that impressed the heck out of me. Dino had laid out every step necessary to create a totally deadly iOS attack that would root the phone. The catch was that just about every other step said, invent this new technology, invent this new technology. It was a roadmap full of holes, and it clarified for me the difference between the iOS security. But so Dan, I think you can speak. I have an iPhone. Does it mean I'm just safe compared to people that have their Android devices?
Before Dan answers, just a quick comment on that. One of our favorite hacks is setting up, like we did before, Wi-Fi and doing a wireless jailbreak of iOS devices and taking total control. So I'm not sure what the to-be developed area was, but it's there today. It's very real.
I wouldn't say it is, actually. I think all those attacks that you demonstrated are not applicable to most devices that are in the wild. We don't have any data that indicates that any attacks are being performed against mobile devices through the web browser like that.
No, we did this to demonstrate we could. Yeah. We set it up in a live audience like this, and we did the real hack. I mean, we can do it.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are possible around the world, but there's only a very few number of things that are going to be profitable for an attacker to actually perform. And when we look at the scope of kind of what are the actions that I can take to make money as a malware developer, we look at things like how many mobile web browsers are there out there compared to how many desktop browsers are there. And how difficult is it for me to find those guys on the internet and then break in? And the reality is that on mobile devices, it is significantly harder to compromise through a web browser than it is on your desktop. So you have to try harder to get less people. And the data that you've got there, people don't have the same systems in place to take advantage of all the data that you've got on your mobile devices. So this attack vector goes very much unexplored. And it's not one that we see actively investigated or abused from attackers today. Instead, what we see is the app vector. And as we talked about before, it's all about apps because apps slide onto your phone. They don't need an exploit to get there. You installed it. So it only needs one simple exploit to jailbreak that phone, and that exploit is usually public already. They stole it from somebody that wrote it so that people could mod their device. So they're really, these exist on both platforms, right? We have iPhone jailbreaks, we have Android jailbreaks. Why do we see attacks on only Android, and why do we not see attacks that are correspondingly similar on iOS? Comes down to about two things. The first is very loose control of the App Store. Google does not apply the same kind of identification policies that they do for, that Apple does. It's basically like, what's your name? Neil, right? Neil, yeah. You've told me, right?
Yeah.
Apple takes out your ID and looks at your driver's license. They verify with a third party so that they know that there is somebody authentic, there is a person behind this transaction. It is not just somebody that signed up to an anonymous account with a new IP address and a new phone number, and they can enforce repercussions on that person and make sure that they can't sign up and submit another application next time. Now, secondary to that, on Android, we have the patching situation, which is abysmal. Basically, patches don't happen on Android. If we take a look at Android 4.0, Android 4.0 came out on October 11th, 2011. So it came out about a year ago. How many people are running that out of the 400 million Android devices in the wild? 5%? Yeah, 21%, actually. A little bit better than that. It has been a year, right? So they're finally into double digits. What's that? Yeah, how many people have Android phones?
And who has 4.0 or better?
And who has 4.0 or better? Okay, we have a fairly technically sophisticated crowd here. Google reports these statistics themselves, so we know what the number is for all the devices they own. So on the corresponding with iOS, 5.1 was released. This was after over-the-air updates for iOS started to get used. 10 days. After 10 days, we had 50% patches. 50% of the entire user base of iOS devices were patched to that next version, to 5.1. So these, oh, right, yeah, so I already explained the Android side of things. This creates an opportunity that people can take advantage of, because if I can upload applications to that App Store with impunity, and I can sign up to accounts that are anonymous, and I don't have to prove my identity, I can keep doing it. And if I have devices that are vulnerable to exploits and jailbreaks that I already have available and you can't patch, then you're going to get malware and it's going to compromise your personal data. Same thing's not true on iOS.
I'd like to throw out something else. I've seen a demo. I thought of even trying to do it here, but really simple. Android apps can be taken apart and their insides shown like a machine. You can see the gears. And you can put in the Trojan gear, close the box up again, and it runs. It's not literally that simple, but it is almost indistinguishable from that simple. The demo took the guy 5 minutes because he was explaining every step of the way. Now, he can't upload that back to Google Play. But there are countries like China where you don't have access to the totally real Android App Store.
I'll actually add something to that. So
please.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's nothing like that for iOS. You can't just like open up an iPhone app and stick something in it and have it run with your bad code.
So Android apps have some interesting properties. And one of the most interesting is that they can change functionality at runtime, and they can change functionality after they've been approved by the App Store. These two conditions mean that the security review that they go through in the Google Play App Store is not going to be as thorough or as effective as it would be through the iOS App Store. With the iOS App Store, the code that you upload is the code that runs on that device. They have things called code signatures that enforce that as a requirement of using their system. With Android, it's built into the architecture to do something different. They can't prevent that. So I can get an application approved that then later changes or downloads its functionality at runtime to perform some attack at a later date. Researchers from, I think, Trustwave, you guys know? Nod, yeah, no? I don't know. Black Hat Talk this year, big security conference. They demonstrated a couple attacks where they did just that. They hid some things inside the Google Marketplace in order to demonstrate that their security review is not as effective as people think. There are other people from Duo Security that did the same kind of probing, where they were actually able to submit applications that were aware of when they were being tested and then figured out exactly what checks were being performed. So they have a blueprint of exactly what kinds of things Google's looking for. And this kind of information, the way that App Store runs, makes it much more susceptible to having malware being uploaded directly to the first-party App Store.
Wow.
Android's a mess, and the worst part is that Google only runs its App Store model against one kind of phone. It's 300 different built in Android.
Yeah.
Well, and one other thing, too, from an App Store perspective, I mean, we're only talking about 2 right here. I mean, there are hundreds of App Stores that are out there. So, the opportunity to have malware out in an App Store that someone is going to download it from that may have virtually no control is very, very
yeah, there's some control on the Google App Store, right? But it gets worse as you go downhill.
That's right.
So I want to turn in a slightly different direction. We had a nice demo of just how easy it is to subvert a Wi-Fi hotspot. But in actual fact, if I'm Joe the bad guy, I can create the hotspot with all my bad activities built right in. You connect to it, and I'll sniff all of your web traffic. I will falsify the DNS. The resolution DNS is when you type in PCMag.com and the computer says, "Oh, that means this IP address." For anyone who didn't know that, I can change that so that your request for PCMag.com looks totally legit, but it goes to a different site, or more likely to, say, Amazon. What I haven't heard a lot about, so a rogue Wi-Fi hotspot would be dangerous. I haven't heard a lot about rogue 3G or even 4G hotspots. Can we all be a whole lot safer by just always using our phones in 3G or 4G mode and skipping the Wi-Fi?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Let's go to Ronaldo after that one.
Okay.
I think
I wasn't sure you would just say
just
that.
made marketing really happy.
Marketing won't like that?
No, I mean, one good thing that Android does have, and to address that problem, is that with the widgets you could just simply, and this is what I tell customers and whenever we in this forum, is simple enough. With the widget, just keep the Wi-Fi off. Just keep it turned off, and same thing with Bluetooth. And I even do like with the location services to turn off the GPS. But certainly we do it. We have seen with GSM people setting up rogue base stations so it does exist out in the wild, and even with other technologies, the problem with that is, of course, is the cost of the equipment and availability of the equipment and being able to set it up. But with people who are, we get asked about like femtocells and things like that, and the reality is it's not really that simple to set up a 3G or 4G base station and do the same kind of management.
If I was in the office, I'd be Googling femtocells right now because I know I've heard the word.
Sure.
But what's that?
They're basically, they're tiny little cell sites, and they attached with a broadband connection that you can have in your home. You can have, let's say you're in an area where you have bad coverage, you can sign up for these, and they come out and they put them in your house, and now you have a small base station where your cell phone gets all the signal right there, and your backhaul is through your broadband connection.
New one on me. Okay. The thing is, even if you're on the Wi-Fi hotspot, even if it's the Russian mafia's hotspot, maybe you can log in through your VPN, virtual private network, which encrypts all the traffic from your device to, say, the network. Are you then safe? If I go on the VPN, can I just go, sorry? Can I just assume, hey, I'm safe now, everything's good?
You're certainly, going through VPN is going to offer you orders of magnitude better security. So if you can use a VPN, it's highly encouraged. But there is no silver bullet in our industry, right? There's always ways to compromise systems, to get your exploits out, and there's no one thing that we can do to say, well, if you do this one thing, you're golden. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist. It's why we are in business, right? We continue to figure these things out. What are the next round of activities that are going on that we need to be aware of, and how do we get in front of those to make sure that our consumers are protected before they can do something to them. But VPN is a great thing. I'd strongly recommend people doing that, but I wouldn't necessarily just assume that because I'm using VPN, I'm good.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that for a second. The years ago when I used to do consultant work, and I used to do attacker penetration. I also used to do some forensic work, and we had to work with a company that had been compromised, and part of it was, all their employees were using VPNs, and they were at their wits' end, saying, how is it that possible we couldn't have been compromised? The fact is that when you're not on a VPN, you're just as susceptible to all those things. Before setting up the VPN session is only good for that moment in time that you're connected, right? And it turns out the method was today. We call these things advanced persistent threats, but these kind of hacks have been around a long time. Person had gotten an email, downloaded. They clicked on something. This was years ago when it was a lot simpler to just send an email. People would click on things. It doesn't happen anymore. But
sorry.
Right.
So within that VPN tunnel, they got compromised. So it does go down to human behavior, which is the biggest factor that we can't control, and it does. People have this false sense of security when they have some of these things running.